Please know that I am keenly aware of the many that are watching who are not here in the U.S., but it's not just America, it's the world. I mentioned last week that I believe we are witnessing, and I use this phrase for a reason specifically, that we are witnessing the controlled demolition of the current world order in order to usher in the new world order vis-a-vis order out of chaos. That's what's happening. I am of the belief that the clarion call before every single one of us is to let go of this world and accept the fact that it is passing away. The Apostle John, in his first epistle, chapter 2, verses 15 through 17, by the Holy Spirit wrote, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes,
and the pride of life."
The lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And listen to what he says in verse 17. He says, the world is passing away. You know what he's saying? Is that not what we say today? This week I have 2 memorial services. 2 people passed away. When our daughter was dying, we knew that it was just a matter of time. It wasn't if, it was when. She was passing away. This is what John is saying. The world is dying. The world is passing away. And the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. Lest one still be in the denial stage or even the anger stage, consider the following 2 reports, both of which were on Tuesday in this regard, beginning with the Jerusalem Post. They published an article about how Iran, Russia, China, and Turkey are celebrating the collapse of the U.S. Quoting the Post, authoritarian regimes throughout the world are pushing narratives, interesting, that appear to gloat over and celebrate that chaos unfolding in the United States. On Monday, Iran's media pushed stories that highlighted the, quote, collapse, while quoting Russian sources portraying that the U.S. is flailing about as its, listen to this, world order comes crashing down. The protests in the U.S. and the COVID-19 crisis have made Washington appear to be declining rapidly. The Big Four, China, Russia, Turkey and Iran are poised to exploit and emerge stronger. Where
This looks like the fall of Babylon to me, Mystery Babylon, described in Revelation. All of a sudden collapse, and all the merchants of the earth stand afar off and weep and wail over her sudden destruction.
once, listen to this, George Bush Sr. spoke of a new world order, now these countries want to bury that U.S. world order amid the chaos. Same day, Tuesday, the Times of Israel published a report about how Netanyahu told settlers that U.S. enthusiasm for annexation, quote, may have lessened. Quoting the Times, the official said settler leaders left the intense meeting under the impression that annexation would not be taking place, quote, as soon or in the scope, close quote, that had initially been pledged by Netanyahu, vis-a-vis, by the way, the deal of the century, so-called.
That's Trump's 7-year covenant that he's talking about, this deal of the century, this super deal.
Now, I know that there are those who will disagree, but I cannot find the United States of America in the pages of Bible prophecy. And the question becomes, is what we are seeing now that which explains why it is that America is not mentioned in Ezekiel 38? For the benefit of those who are unfamiliar with this prophecy found in Ezekiel chapter 38, it is a very detailed, very specific prophecy about this alliance of nations invading Israel from the north by way of Syria. And the three nations at the helm of this alliance are none other than Russia, Iran, and Turkey. And they invade Israel. And very interesting, the purpose of the invasion, we're told in verse 13 of Ezekiel 38, is to take the spoil, the loot that Israel has, the prosperity that Israel has. And Israel has that prosperity today. What's even more interesting in verse 13 of Ezekiel 38 is that it mentions by their ancient name Saudi Arabia, Sheba and Dedan, along with Tarshish and the young lions thereof, as only protesting, questioning this invasion. There was an article last week. I didn't have time to include everything. If I did include everything, we'd be here until next week, and then I wouldn't have a prophecy update for next week. So, but breaking news last week was that Saudi Arabia is now, by Jordan, allowed to be a part of Waqf. What is Waqf? Waqf is an Arabic word meaning halt or stop. And Waqf is the foundation currently in control of the Temple Mount. And what is so fascinating is that now all of a sudden Saudi Arabia, who has had a very warm relationship with Israel in the last 18 to 24 months, exactly as we're told in Ezekiel 38, will now have a role, a prominent role, as it relates to the Temple Mount. For those of you who are students of Bible prophecy, this is very significant and it is very important prophetically. So, back to America. There are some who hold to the belief that the reference in Ezekiel 38 verse 13 of Saudi Arabia, Sheba and Dedan and Tarshish and the young lions thereof is a reference to the UK and the US. Can't be dogmatic about it. It is possible, certainly, and it would seem to fit, certainly. Because if that's the case, then that would make sense, because there are no nations that stand with Israel when this prophecy is fulfilled and this allied attack and invasion takes place. In fact, talk about a detailed prophecy, we're even told, very detailed, very specific, the purpose of God himself putting a hook in the jaw of Gog, this leader, to bring him and his alliance of nations against his people Israel. God himself hooks them into this. Why would God do that? Oh, we're told why. So that they will know that he is God. When they see the decimating, and I mean devastating defeat and complete annihilation of this allied invasion, I mean, against all odds, there's no explanation other than it was a supernatural manifestation of the mighty hand of God on behalf of his people Israel. So, where's America? Well, if those who suggest that Tarshish is the UK and the young lions thereof are the young nation of the United States of America, then it's a very ambiguous reference to America, and America has somehow been reduced to this position of merely protesting or questioning this invasion of Israel, and is nowhere to be found as it relates to standing with Israel. So we still have this question on the table, don't we? What happens to America? Could it be that America has to first be destroyed and taken out of the way prior to this alliance of nations invading Israel? I would have to answer, yes, it does. I wish it were not so.